I'm Matthew Orr. I'm the founder and owner of VoIPTools and chief architect for our company. Amon is part of our sales team, and Sarah is our chief of staff, right? That's we're going to talk a little bit about our survey creator tool. This is integration with 3CX. I assume that you've already got some ideas as to why you would need a survey, or you wouldn't be here in the first place. But maybe we can kind of hit some high points. One of the things that we as employers and as managers want to know is, how are we doing? How are agents and how are specific agents doing in terms of knowledge and courtesy and being helpful and those kinds of things? So those are all questions that we might ask in an after or post-call survey. You might also want to ask some more general questions about how are we doing as an organization? Are we meeting all of your needs in terms of the services that we're providing? Or are there other services that you would like us to provide? And so those are just some of the things that we'd like to kind of get a feel. You know, are we doing well as a support organization? If you were a distribution company, you might want to know, how are we doing with our RMA process? Are our office hours appropriate to meet your needs? So those are all the kinds of questions that you might ask in a survey. So then the next question ought to be, can I create surveys with the tools that I already have that come with 3CX? And the answer is actually, you can. You don't need our tools to create surveys. Part of 3CX, one of the add-on tools that comes from 3CX is a call flow designer. And that call flow designer has a component specifically for creating surveys. But in contrary to what 3CX would suggest in their marketing materials, building a call flow designer application is not an end user, non-programmer activity. It actually requires a lot of programming capabilities. So learning how to build applications in the call flow designer is something that's going to require a pretty significant investment. If you're not a programmer, you're going to be really challenged doing that. The other thing that is a limitation of 3CX's call flow designer is that if you want to make a new survey or change an existing survey, you've got to build a whole new application and republish that application every single time you want to make a change. So from a maintenance perspective, that's quite a bit of a challenge. The other thing too is that you have to control every aspect of that survey. So what happens if somebody puts in an invalid response? So for example, on a 5-star scale, with 1 being bad and 5 being good, how would you rate us? If they put in a 6 instead of a 5, that's not a valid entry. So now you've got to handle things like that, just basic validation. Now I have to create a loop and go back and ask the same question again. I have to check to see if their input was valid. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do with the call flow designer that comes as part of 3CX. But boy, it's a huge commitment. And so why don't we just simplify this whole process for you? We've invested quite a number of years in developing the call flow designer. And so today we're going to kind of go over some of those pain points that I just mentioned. We're going to show you how you can dynamically create questions, how you can take a collection of questions and group them together into a survey, how you will then make that survey accessible to your callers, and how you get the callers to that survey. Now, in our tool, a survey is just an extension. So we'll go into depth the different possible ways that you can get a caller to one of those surveys. And then the last thing is that we're going to show you some simple reports that we've built into the survey so that you can get the results, because after all, that's what this whole exercise is about, is getting those results, the information that you're trying to glean from these surveys. All right. Survey Creator is a web application. That means that you can pretty much build these surveys from anywhere. So if you're working from home, if you're working from the office, you can create these surveys from pretty much anywhere. So as long as we've provided you access to this website, you can create and manage your surveys. So I'm going to log in with my 3CX extension and voicemail pin. And right there, right out the gate, we're kind of showing you the level of integration that we have with 3CX, because what we've done is we've taken the credentials that you put into that login screen, submitted them to 3CX. 3CX has validated those credentials. And then based on your rights within 3CX, I'm going to control what menu options you see in Survey Creator. And we know, because I can see all the menus in the dark gray bar at the top, because I have access to all these menu options, I know that I'm a manager and have rights to create surveys. Now, the first thing that we need to establish is, how do we create questions? So you might be tempted to think that the first step is to create a survey and then add questions to that survey. But we're going to do it the other way around. We're going to create the questions first and get this collection of questions. And then we're going to create a survey and assign those questions to a survey. So if I go in here to questions, and here's some questions that I've already created. A couple of things that you'll notice is that in this column on the far right is where you define what valid responses are. So it could be anything from a scale of 1 to 3 to 1 to 9 to yes, no, true, false, or even to record the caller's feedback. And I'll kind of walk you through some of these, but let's take an easy one. Oh, I don't know. Let's take this one, for example. So I'm going to go in and edit this question. And what I've done here is I've typed exactly what I want that survey question to ask when the caller takes the survey. And then I've given this question a WAV file name. And that WAV file, that audio file, is what the phone system's going to play when it's time to ask that question. And so when I press this create button, what it's going to do is it's going to take this text and it's going to convert it from text to speech using Amazon Polly. And if you've ever used something like an Echo Dot, for example, or Alexa, we're using the same voice that Alexa uses. So we're not talking about a horrific robotic sounding voice. In fact, it's really good, to the point where in some cases you might not even realize it's not a human being that's asking the question. But if you really want to do it your own way, we give you that option as well. You can browse to a WAV file that was created, for example, through Fiverr, if you hired somebody to record these questions. So that's an option as well. And then you specify what the valid answers are. So true, false, yes, no, or scales between 1 and 5, or record feedback. And this entry here allows us to know what you expect as a valid answer. So if they type in this case, a 6, we know that's outside of the range 1 to 5. So we're going to let you know that that's not a valid answer, and then ask the question again and let you respond to the question again. All right. So type the text that you want to say, you give it a WAV file name, you press the create button. It's going to go out there and convert that text to speech. And then it's going to let me play the WAV file that it created. So if I click on there, you'll see it's brought up this little player right in here, and I can click on this button and it'll play the audio. I don't think you could hear that when I was playing it, could you? I don't think you can hear it.
No, we could not.
But if you were running this on your browser, it would play through the speakers of your computer, or if, in my case, it's playing over my headset so that I could see the quality of it. Because frankly, I've done this 100,000 times, it would seem. And every now and then you'll run into a word that the engine doesn't pronounce as well as you'd like. Or maybe you'll want to put a little pause between words. So inserting a comma will make it sound a lot more natural. So this is just a cyclical process where you type in the message and then you fine tune it by listening to how the text-to-speech engine converted it until you've got it just the way that you want it. And then you press the save button and it'll save those questions. So that's how you create a question. It's pretty straightforward. It's all database driven. It's all through this web interface. Then the next step is to go and to create a survey. So if we go into surveys here, and here's a couple of surveys that we've created. Let's try the customer service one. And what you'll see is that we want to have an introduction. When you send somebody to a survey, you don't just want to right out the gate start asking questions. Instead, you're going to want to have a little introduction, like in this case, hi, thanks for taking our survey. There are only 3 questions. The first question is, and then it'll go in and start asking the questions. And then when you're all done, you're going to let the caller know, hey, thanks for taking our survey. Goodbye. So this is much the same process. You type in what you want it to say, you give it a WAV file name, you press the create button, you listen to it, you refine it if you feel that it's necessary, and you go on your way. Then you add the questions that you want. So if I wanted to add this question, I just include it in there, and now it's part of the survey. It's that simple to create a survey. So it's really, really simple. Now I said up here that there are only 3 questions and I added an extra question. So I'm going to take this one off just so that the survey makes sense. Oh, and I should mention that you're giving it an extension number in 3CX here. And then this is just a label. This is just here so that when you're looking at the list of surveys, you know which survey that you're talking about, if that makes sense. Okay. Now we have the list of surveys. We've made all of the modifications. We've added all the questions and the intros and the exit prompts, and we're ready to go. We want to make this happen. So then you press the publish button like that. And what it does is it builds that call flow designer application that we were talking about earlier. And it uses all of the database stuff that we've been generating for the questions in the survey, and then it publishes that to 3CX. Now there's an extension 5300 associated with this survey and a 6000 associated with that survey. So how do you get somebody to take a survey? You just transfer them to that extension, right? But what if you have a zillion surveys that you've created over the years? It might be hard to remember what extension to transfer the person to. So if we go here to the transfer menu option, you'll see here's our 2 surveys with their names. And all you need to do is press this transfer button, and it'll take your current active call and it'll transfer it to that survey. This is not the perfect thing, is it? Because you'd like that when the phone call is all finished, that everybody just hangs up and then that caller automatically gets the survey. Requiring the agent to transfer the caller to the survey is a step that might not always happen, especially if the agent just cussed out the customer. He or she is not going to be very motivated to transfer that caller to a customer service satisfaction survey because they know they're going to get slammed on, were they courteous, were they knowledgeable, did they answer all their questions, you know, those kinds of things, right? So they might be tempted to just not forward that call to the survey. So how do we get around that problem? Well, one of the things that we have to understand is that 3CX is a phone system based on established standards in the industry. And one of the SIP standards is that if any of the two parties hangs up the phone, the call is terminated, period. There's no getting around it. So if the agent hangs up the phone, that phone is going to send a message to the phone system saying this call has been disconnected, and the phone system will drop the call. So there's no opportunity for us to automatically just transfer that caller over to the survey because somebody hung up and that's the end of the call. So how do we get it? How do we solve this problem where an agent doesn't want to send that person to the survey because they just cussed them out? Well, there's another feature that we can do in a survey creator. Let's take a hypothetical. A call comes into your phone system, says, welcome to Solara Bank. For customer service, press 1. They press 1, but instead of transferring that call directly to the customer service queue, instead it's going to send that call to a different extension. And so you transfer it to a special extension that will then ask the caller a question. The call flow designer application will recognize the caller ID number of the person that's called, and it'll say something like this. Hi, if you'd be willing to take a brief survey after this call, press 1. They press 1, and it says, this is the telephone number that we recognized you've called in on. Is this the right number to call you back? If yes, press 1. If no, if you need to put in a different telephone number, press 2. They press 1. Now we know the telephone number that we're supposed to call them back. We say, thank you very much, transferring you to the customer service queue. It then transfers that call to the queue. The agent takes the call. They solve all of the issues that the person is calling about, and everybody hangs up and everything's fine. But now we've entered an entry into a database that says that this person at 801-642-4655 has agreed to take a survey. And so the second that the two people hang up that telephone call and the call is dropped, we call them right back. And so when they answer the phone, we're going to do that intro prompt. Hey, this is Solara Bank. Thank you for being willing to take a brief survey. The first question is blah, 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 blah. That way you avoid this scenario where the agent isn't particularly motivated to send that caller to the survey. So those are the two ways that you can get callers to a survey. Is there any other ways? And the answer is yes. Because this is just an extension on the phone system, you can get callers to that telephone number in any number of ways. For example, it's an extension, so you could send an email, and in that email is a link that is the callback for that extension. They click on that link, and it sends the call to the extension number, and then they hear the questions and they respond back using their computer, right? Or another way is that you use our power dialer and you call them on the phone. So if you have a database of people that you've done business with over the last 6 months and you'd just like to call them back and see, you had service with us in the last week, and we'd love to get your feedback on how we did. Did we do a good job? If you'd be willing to take a survey, press 1. They press 1, and then it sends them to that survey and asks all the questions, and you go on your merry way. So emails, websites, telephone calls, automatic callbacks, these are all different ways that you can get those callers to that phone survey. The next question then ought to be, okay, we've done all these surveys. Let's get some results. I made some changes and I didn't save them. And so it's complaining you need to save your changes before you move on, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. All right. So here we can choose the start time and date and the end time and date if you want to be selective about what these are. But these are just some surveys that I took earlier this morning. And so there's just one person calling per survey. And so it's figured out what the daily average is, the weekly average, and the monthly average. And you can see that I took this survey twice. So this allows you to just get a sense of how your scores are evolving over time and how many people have taken those surveys. So this is just kind of an overview of the survey information. All right, so if we go in here and take a look at, I think this is the one I took the survey twice. We can go in here and look. I guess this is the one I did once. Is this the one I did twice? Yeah, so this is the one I did twice. So you can see who the person is that took the call, and because I'm an agent, it saw me as the agent and the customer because I called from inside the phone system, so it looks that way. So you can see how I answered all of these questions. And then if I want to filter any of these questions, I can. So if I want to know all of the survey results for a given agent, I would just put in 1001 right there, and it would filter them all. Now, you saw it tried to filter, well, I'm the only person that's taken a survey, so it didn't restrict what you saw here, but it's that simple if you want to see how an agent did. If you want to export this information to various platforms to further massage this, maybe you want to bring it into Excel and do pie charts and that kind of thing, you can certainly filter what information you're looking for and then just press the export to XLS, and it'll export that file into a text file so that you can generate the further reports. If you're all done with this and you want to clear out the data, you can hit this reset button and it'll clear out all the survey results, and then you can do another set of surveys later. So there's a lot of options for doing reports, but all this data is put into Microsoft SQL Server. And once you have that data in Microsoft SQL Server, pretty much any reporting tool will work. So whether you use Crystal Reports or SQL reporting services or Microsoft Power BI or Excel, any one of those tools can access this data and you can massage it however you want. So our claim to fame with this tool is that we make it simple to create, manage, and report on your own surveys without having to be a programmer. And now you can get to that kind of question like, which of my agents are performing well? Which of them are getting low scores for knowledge, which means, oh, we better train them a little bit more to get their knowledge skills up, or which agents are getting low scores for courtesy. Look, if your job is to talk to people on the phone and you're getting low courtesy scores, maybe it's time to go look for another job. But if you're not getting feedback from your customers, how do you know? It's kind of a hit or miss kind of thing. Maybe you're walking by their desk and you hear them cussing out a customer. That might be a clue. So really getting to those answers to those vital questions. Do we have the right services? Are our office hours the correct office? Are there additional services that we should provide? Which of my agents are doing a good job and which ones are kind of failing? Those are all the kinds of questions that you can get out of our Survey Creator tool. And I'm sure that you have 1,000 other questions that you could come up on your own to ask of your customers and get a sense of where you could improve on the services that you're providing. All right, let's kind of summarize what we've done today. We've talked about how to create questions, how to take a collection of questions and group them into a survey, how to publish those surveys to 3CX so that you have an extension that you can use, how to get callers to your survey, and some basic reporting information that you can get right out of the box. But the sky's really the limit for the reports. If you've got somebody that knows how to do things in Excel, you can build pretty much any report that you want. We've taken a very complicated, programmer-centric, non-flexible solution that comes with 3CX, and we've made it super simple. So in the end, I just want to say thank you for giving us some of your time. And if you want to get a hold of us, there's lots of different ways to get a hold of us: email, live chat, phone. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We've got a call center in Delhi as well as here in the United States. So you should be able to get a hold of us any day, any time of the day, 24 hours a day.